All right, guys, let's do this. So our first track that we're going to listen to, this is going to be from Mudvayne. This is the Super Patreon New Metal Revival session. I don't know if they'll come for me in the comments. For those who are saying, no, it's not, man. It's still cool. You know what I'm saying. This first song is Forget to Remember from Saw 2. Saw was a movie, wasn't it? I'm sorry, I don't remember. Kind of ignorant about that. It's original soundtrack. Must be. Let's do this. All right. I like that so much. They shifted up like that.
What have I done? Where have I come from? When I bought the bags with the sun through a glass, then I see all the loss that's become me.
Give me that bass.
Feeling undone. What have I become? When I turned my back on you, I turned my back on myself and became this machine.
I love the fact that they sent a shot over the bow by introducing the bottom end and the riff of what was soon to be the hook. So obviously this track is like 3.5 minutes, and it's in it to a minute to win it. You guys heard me say that. They got into the hook with just about a minute into it. The little mono melodic part of the guitar that came in while the riff was just bouncing, to me that's one of the most like super cool uses of dynamics as an engineer that you can do and not clutter up the tones. So you had the great crunchy, very tight left and right, stereo grind, but then you had the little bit of the melody that's being played nice and pocketed and kind of soft. The high ends were kind of pulled down and just right in the middle. So you have that dynamic that pulls, and then all of a sudden they drop in with that really super slick, clean guitar tone. And, I don't have a really big reach on Mudvayne's big discography, but this track really sounds really super well produced, and maybe it was an extra little bit of nudge in production because it was for the movie soundtrack. I don't know. And, that bass.
Still wrestle the demons that arrested me as a child, confession rejected. We grow up to give up. People step on the cracks for wounds unpaid back through the words of surrender. Emptiness, loneliness, listlessness.
The bass really is The other thing is this kind of cut time, wow, pa, while we have the more aggressive lines in the riff. To me, that's probably one of the most powerful parts of metal that I've enjoyed on this journey, on the Decomposer Lounge, is when bands are being aggressive, you know, with their 8th and 16th arrangements, but they're in a cut time, you know, groove with the drums. And what that does is it makes these parts to me stand out even more and aggressively. And it really, to me, hits home in the musicianship and the rhythmical arrangements. So you listen to the bass that's going on back there. It is probably, without a doubt, at certain times, the most aggressive instrument in the mix. Boom, ta, gee, right? And then you have the chugs going, jang, 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 jang. But the bass is, you know, and to me that is just absolutely mind-numbing. And then one last thing I want to say before I move on. A lot of the music that I've heard that have been produced, let's say in the last 10 or 12, 15 years, there's been that emphasis on the splash cymbal. You know, it's like, it's a killer sound. But I don't know that necessarily in its time. Right now, what I love hearing is the fact that the drummer's just using that slightly open hi-hat for that. It's the same effect. Obviously, that cymbal now has really taken a front listening pattern to a lot of the more progressive recordings, you know, that I've listened to in the last couple of years, but brings it home for me. That was absolutely sick. Fully dug it. There was also something that was really super cool in the hooks. There was an answer back, and I don't know if it was, you know, if they sang it every time or they just cut and pasted and put it in. Because the vocals on this were very melodic. So there obviously wasn't, you know, any really dark, hardcore, you know, throaty squeals or fries going on, except in the hook there was like a wow. Sorry, I'm just saying. But it was in the same time in every hook in every place, and it was part of the actual arrangement in that sense. It wasn't like a free-flowing one time they did it. It actually was placed in each part of there. And that's one of those sub-hook things that sometimes people hook onto and stuff, no pun. Just like the Slipknot track that I just released on my channel, I talked about, you know, it was a great riff, you know, the one I released this morning. It was a great riff, but there were two notes at the end that really made it stick out to me. You know, and sometimes it's those little secondary things that, you know, happen and fire off that make you go, that's the damn hook. All right, guys, next track. This is from POD, and this is called Set It Off. Somebody said, what does POD stand for? Standby. It stands for, oh, I can't. Someone save me! POD standing for Payable on Death. That's a slick name, guys. Let's do this. This is POD Set It Off. All right. Great guitar sound.
Say what you say, but you ain't show me nothing. If you want me to feel you, then you're best to give me something. All barking, all by, talking all high. I hang with the illest you I don't recognize. Desensitized and paralyzed. Sabotage headquarters, but your bloodline we sterilize. You ain't gonna get down in my gun. You ain't get mine when you give me all run. We got the flow when you count the one. Underground blaze the sounds who I'm a Gideon.
Oh, this is one of those like molasses pre-chorus. I bet it'll blow up in our face. Yep. Okay, my first question is here is because I don't have any inexperience, like say like a Finn McKenty or Nick Nocturnal style, depth of knowledge. This kind of rapping through the verse, I'm not too sure. Like it's not a who did it first kind of vibe, but for me in my little bubble of listening, it was like Linkin Park was really well known for that, and I think what was the other guy with the one with the hat? Fred something also. I mean, there was this rapping for verse and then huge punching vocals for a hook. If that was what made new metal, were those crossover elements. That guitar sound in there is sick as can be. It's wet. It kind of reminds me of Andy. What was the name of the guitar player of Police? Used to love those long notes that had really super nice voicings, but really let it ring out. And that just is, I go goober over that stuff. And then of course here's another bass player that not only is holding down, the visceral gut punchiness of it all. Well, what a great tone in that bass too. It almost sounds like I'm a bass player reacting to, but I'm a composer.
You wanna disrespect? Why do cowards talk the loudest? Papa dear rage, no pun on everything I love. If you ready, then come and get it, son. Overpower this 12 tower. Infiltrate top ranks, count down the final hour. Here we go, 10,000 money life. Do what you want when you think we are more on. We got a blow, but they call no one else. Underground blaze the sounds, you are Gideon. Our time is gone.
That bass, I just was. Quick question: was this also a genre that really did not emphasize lead guitar work? I'm not too sure. I remember there was discussion of the fact that new metal didn't have a lot of, powerful lead work. But then, I don't know. I've got 7 more songs to listen to. I was just curious because everything, the breakdowns or the bridges might have melodic work, but it's not, ripping cut loose lead work. I don't know. You guys tell me. That was crazy. The hook was so solid and it was square and it was in your face. And I think that's probably one of the things thus far, I'm only on the second song, that I think, in the discussion of new metal and its resurgence, part of that might be that, I've always talked about the power of less is more, but it's tricky. It doesn't mean that you're any less or more of a musician. It's a beast. It's a different kind of beast to wield. And I think that this kind of powerful hooks that I've heard so far just have a much broader acceptability in the listening scope of anybody who listens to rock and metal. But what do I know? I'm just saying. That's why I ask you guys. New metal it depends too, because the new metal thing for me too, the experience actually started for me without even knowing it was a genre. The genre was Korn, and apparently that was of the essence of new metal. I know that there's, oh my gosh, this one band. I'm gonna get so hazed in the comments for this. I think now I'm trying to remember. If I'm wrong here, just be gentle. The band that Dimebag Darrell was in, wasn't that also kind of considered the very embryonic beginnings, I think, of new metal of sorts? I don't know. If not, there was one of these bands that I remember listening to on the channel that was like, no, dude, everybody listened to or pulled from this guy or from this band before, new metal started. Pantera. Yes, that's what it was. Thank you for that. Okay, what are we doing here next? Let's hit it now. Let's do Loathe. How many Loathe fans are out there? So this one's for you. This one is a screaming. Let's do this. All right. Okay, so for myself, this is a 2020. It wasn't like I was doing like a revival of, let's say, earlier new metal, but this was in my new metal list, and it did say that this was new metal. Perhaps this is where that point where some bands have new metal roots, perhaps, or is the new metal genre expanding a little more? It hasn't really been a dated genre, and more bands identify with it. Is that a possibility? This definitely has a completely different sound. This sounds a lot more crispier in production, as far as presence. The drum has some pretty unique compression on it. It's really super dry, but they definitely make it up with those really dark, saturated guitar sounds that are not of your, normal, guitars I'm used to listening to on my channel, where they're very detailed, cleaned and cut and crispy and powerful but compressed. And they have this more, at least in the hook, there was a lot more of the melodic aspect of the gliding vocals and something ethereal in the background. I couldn't tell if that was like an open guitar just laying out chords and letting it ring across. But then, of course, I think in the pre-chorus they had that full-on gnarly, squeal voice or fried voice in there. So this is like kind of an integrated thing into the never-ending genre of new metal, I think.
Take off.
massive tug of war in power change up in this track. So you have, like I said, the glidey vocals and stuff like that, but then there's with the way they not only just integrated what I had mentioned before, there was that full blown, vocal fry and heaviness. But I got to emphasize again, man, the sound of the guitars is so dark and heavy and so just shattering, like a saturated shatter vibe, that it really pulls well in the dichotomy from these really nice flowy vocals that are happening in the first verse or in the verse sections before the fire spitting fried vocals, and then also what they do in the hook. It's almost like an ice pad on a burn, and the fry and the burn of the the heaviness of the vocals, and then they kind of put that little compress on there to make it so it's going to be okay. It'll be fine. Those are some of the grittiest guitars I've ever heard. Wow, what a trippy production choice. Oh, dissonance there. Ouch. They got to leave you with a little bit of dab, you know what I mean? What's going on there? Letting something wind out there. Oop, this might lead into another track. I better get out of it. See ya! That last chord was really nice. There in this particular track, they definitely threw a lot of tripwired arrangements into it. That was like, whoop, and then all of a sudden you go and do this, and something else they were doing in the hook. There was a couple times too where I found it really fascinating in the engineering while the melody was going. I think it might have been a pre-chorus where it's a clean melodic approach, but in the back you actually hear, kind of like the other song I may have mentioned about earlier, there's this like gnarly screaming vocal that is, it's way far enough back and there's a little bit of tonal value to it, but as far as the dynamics and engineering, hearing it tucked in there, I can only imagine now, I'm reading a little bit of the lyrics. It's another one of those tug of wars, devil angel shoulder kind of vibes going on in the lyrics or in the lyrical aspect versus the musical composition of it. That tug of war and that dichotomy of, the lyrics could be fluffy and beautiful, but it could be death metal or it could be the other way around or whatever the case is. This definitely had it for me. All right. Excuse me. Let me see. Yeah, it sounds like it had a Deftones influence for sure. Guys, we're going to Linkin Park. Let's do this. This is the Hybrid Theory is the name of the... Oh, well, I wasn't completely under a rock. I recognized the album cover. Points of Authority, I may have heard. Remember, I always get comments going, dude, how could you possibly have been breathing and not know of these tracks? Excuse me. And, well, it's pretty simple. My head was under a rock for a period of my life, and I didn't have a lot of access to free music listening time. So this is what happens when it happens. So this track is called Points of Authority by Linkin Park. And this is, once again, from the Nu Metal Patreon list. All right.
Forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame and put your name to shame, cover up your face. You can't run the race, the pace is too fast, it just won't last. You love the way I look at you while taking pleasure in the opposite.
A definite Korn influence there.
You take away if I give in. My life, my pride is broken. You like to think you're never wrong. You live what you do. You have to act like you're someone. You live what you do. You want someone to hurt like you. You live what you do. You wanna share what you've been through. You live what you do. You love the things I say I do. The way I hurt myself again just to get back at you. You take away when I give in. My life, my pride is broken. You like to think you're never wrong. You live what you.
Okay, twice into the hook already, but actually the elements of the hook presented itself at the beginning, and one of the things that you saw me doing where I'm going like this is there's a sequence that's going back there. Once again, I don't know if it was the DJ that may have had it, set up on his table or whatever they did digitally as DJs in the modern day DJs and how they have things set up. But well, I can't do it that high. Except it's higher with kind of a phase shifty kind of vibe. They kind of brought that in, and those are the magical little secondary hooks I always talk about that they lock in, and when you're writing songs, a lot of times, if you want to really put out something really super powerful hook-wise, when you had a 3 to 4 minute song, you want the hook to repeat 3 or 4 times, there are these musical elements that'll stand out. Earlier I mentioned it seemed like it has a little bit of a Korn influence there, and the only reason why I say that is because Korn to me was my first exposure, if you would, to a nu metal vibe. Just that whole sound was just like, what the hell is this? It's unbelievable. But what it is to take these kind of darker notes. Okay, that in of itself brings out this is going to be like a song of heaviness and minor and stuff. And the melody is da 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 da. At that last note that's hit actually turns that into kind of a major chord. Da da da. So if it was the go to Stay in the Pocket, it's da da. Takes that heaviness and then gives you that little kind of like chicken skin goosebumps, kind of like, oh, you know what I'm saying, and that little punch there, and I love that.
You have to act like you're someone. You live what you do. You want someone to hurt like you. You live what you do.
You hear that?
You wanna share what you've been through. You live what you do. Forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame. Put your name to shame, cover up your face. You can't run the race, the pace is too fast. You just won't last. Forfeit the game before somebody else takes you out of the frame. Put your name to shame, cover up and the race, the pace is too fast, you just won't last. You like to think you're never wrong. You live what you learn. You have to act like you're someone. You live what you learn. You want someone to hurt like you. You live what you learn. You wanna share what you've been through. You live what you learn. You have to think you'll never know. Think the game. You live what you learn. You have to act like you're someone. Think the game. You live what you learn. You want someone to hurt like you. Think the game. You live what you learn. You wanna share what you've been through. You live what you learn.
Okay, that's trippy. That was badass. Somebody said, "Hey, you gotta wait to the end of this for to get some engineering trickery out of it." That was really sick. That the vocals and back before it became a major thing in music for engineers, we used to call that the AM canned, like a little AM radio, like a pocket AM. You had, like in the movie Radio, which I loved. That movie, it was unbelievable. But you have that sound of that AM radio, and that's what as a engineer from the 70s and the 80s, that's what we used to call it. And that's by really pulling off the highs and just making it really mid-oriented and dropping the bottoms and stuff. Anyhow, super smash and hooking track. The guitars on this, super, super, super clean, and by no stretch of the imagination is what I'm about to say is a dig on anything in their music abilities. It just sounds like there was a really nice tight gate at the end, not clipped, just a gate, and a lot of that is there's magic in that space. There's what it does in our brains a lot of times, and when you have those abrupt stops, there's a little bit of magic that goes on in that space, which of course there's that old saying, all the real music happens in the space between the notes. And then once again, of course, Linkin Park has got such an incredible impact on millions of people's soundtrack of life for many different reasons, obviously. But I think this was without this track or this project, I think, is where I first heard what was the name of their very big, super, super big breakout hit, where I was so blown away that they integrated, that kind of cadence rapping. I don't know if you want to call it rapping. I maybe more like slam poetry kind of vibe. And then they blow up into these gigantic vocals, And the first time I heard that was, I think it was One Step Closer. Yeah. I heard that and I was like going, wow, listen to this. Like it took a lot for me to stop my Bronco. I had an old Bronco in the 90s and stuff that I had all the way until like 2003. It took me a lot to stop my Bronco and say, I got to pull over and listen to this. What the hell is this? And I believe I believe that hit of theirs was the one that made me go, what is this? But yeah, Linkin Park, powerful, powerful band in many people's soundtrack of life. All right, guys, next up, System of a Down. And I was so bobo. The very first time I did a video on my Decomposer Lounge, I said System of a Down. I didn't. Come on, guys. Old man fail. Come on. That's me and my peanut butter. I think I gave a peanut butter prop in that last video, didn't I? Did you guys see me scooping out? All right, stand by. I'm telling you, I'm trippy this way. Little peanut butter, sip of coffee. Come on, man. Jamaica almond fudge without all the ice cream. All right, here we go. This is E-I-E-I-O, and I'm sorry. Don't come for me, fans. I'm dyslexic, severely dyslexic. And if you've been on my channel long enough, and how many times people have to correct my titles or something, that's just how I see it. So I'm sorry. No disrespect. Here we go. IEAIAIO. I'm sure it means something. Let's do this. All right. Wow, trippy drum engineering. Real tight. Listen to the bass tone. Chicken stand for the win.
Readers like a big another pick a brain, pussy pepper. Readers like a big another pick a brain, pussy pepper. Why? Meeting John Dale, Junior Wink tonight, pointing finger. Meeting John Dale, Junior Wink tonight, pointing finger. Why? From a god, but the cover just shine, now recover from a god, but the cover just shine, now recover. Why? Fighting crime with the partner Loath lane, Jimmy got a fighting crime with the partner Loath lane, Jimmy got a. And we light up the sky.
Great harmony.
Like a big another pick of brain, pussy pepper. Readers like a big another pick of brain, pussy pepper. Meeting John Dale, Junior Wink tonight, point a finger. Meeting John Dale, Junior Wink tonight, point a finger. From a cop, but the cover just shine, I recover from a cop, but the cover just shine, I recover. Why? Fighting crime with the partner Loath lane, Jimmy got a fighting crime with the partner Loath.
Okay, I'm sure there's a heavier, much deeper meaning to a lot of this. I'm kind of trying to understand it, but then I'm reading the lyrics. I'm listening to his incredible freaking performance. What was the name of the song where the very first, I think, was it Toxicity or something, where he did the same kind of very fast talking performance stuff that was so unique and so unreal. But what I loved always about System of a Down were the very unique harmonies that I believe I've heard people, leave on the comments that they're pulled from, the culture of which they're Armenian, and I've always talked about cultures having extremely unique harmonies, and I dig my heels in on that. So whether you're listening to harmonies from like Samoa or from Africa or from certain areas, in the Asian countries and stuff like that, many different cultures that have very unique harmonies and stuff, especially the Middle Eastern that are known for a little more of their, what's kind of the droning, Phrygian style kind of harmonies and stuff like that. So freaking unique, so powerful. Of course, it caught me off guard in the production because those drums are really super tight and compressed when it started. I mean, it sounded really small, and then it explodes when the guitars come in, and then that bass tone was absolutely mental. Please, in the comments, put your hands up or something for bass tone on this one, because that was absolutely sick. But I'm there's some messaging in here which I'm going to try to pull together while you continue to listen. So. Those harmonies.
Mind illusions acquainted, bubbles erotica, plutonium wedding rings, icicle stretchings, bicycle shoestrings, one flag, flaggy but one, painting the painting of their life.
I don't know if it's always not safe to try to figure out what these what a lyricist or a band or a song, whatever, what they're trying to relay in that messaging and lyrics, because part of the fun is it for you to make it into something in your world that it identifies with. But plutonium wedding rings, icicle stretchings, bicycle shoestrings. I mean, some genius writing here. More that slam poetry. I said slam poetry about the Linkin Park track before this, but in this case, it's the same thing, except there's tone involved there, and to me, and we light up the sky. Maybe it's this kind of subversive. All this shit's going on, but still yet we blow up things. We light up the sky with war. I don't know. But, I from the songs that I've listened, plus I actually do follow the lead singer, and he, always releases tracks and stuff that have to do with a lot of sensitive, powerful, content of what's happening in the world as a representative, as a musician in the bigger audience, releasing music and, bringing awareness to things that are very heavy of that nature. So, that's what music's all about, Shadow, you still here? You know what that is. For those of you who are thinking, why am I talking to myself and looking this way? It's because this Patreon list is being streamed here on Twitch. So I keep on looking over here to say hi to my guests. I didn't put the stream on this. I realized I blew it. But I am not necessarily talking to myself, but I always talk to myself, but I'm talking to my friends here. So anyhow, that being said, I need a sip of water for a second. And speaking of all my friends here at on the Twitch stream, thank you so much. I kind of look over and catch everything, and I wish I could stop and answer everything, but I love you guys. I'm reading, I'm watching, I'm learning. Stand by. The good thing is I can edit out some of these weird things when I put this up on Patreon and then YouTube. So, anyhow. Hey, what is that? Antiphius or whatever? I see you. I see you. That's funny. Maybe I should edit out that spot about the chat and just make it look like I'm literally having a moment. Me and my Skippy peanut butter. Stupid is, stupid does. Oh shit, almost drooled. That's the signs of getting old. Oh shit. What are you gonna do? All right, what do we got next, guys? All right, how about some Deftones? You guys down for some Deftones? I'm down for some Deftones. How about you? Uh-oh. Look, chat's lighting up. I have to say that my experience with Deftones on my channel has been extraordinary. They are so metal eclectic. I don't think there's a word like that, and I definitely don't think I coined it. But metal eclectic in such a massive, powerful way as composers and arrangers, songwriters. Chino's voice. I mean, come on. Really? There's so many great voices out there. It's just which are the ones that stand out in tone and in presence and in passion. So we can measure a voice on how long they hold a scream, or how high notes are, or how low notes are, or how fast they could say something, which is great. It's like shred for me. I'm enamored with shred. I'm trying as an old composer to learn how to shred, and it's hard, and it takes time, and there's a sequence of just craziness when you go sweep, hammer, pick, yeah. But what I've learned about shred is there are shred musicians that say nothing and shred musicians that say everything. So I use that same analogy with vocals. You know, you just have to be at the right space at the right time writing a song that transcends, and then you become that amazing singer. Maybe it's just that one song or something, but that's just how I feel about it. That's just the old man in me. That's the Obi-Wan Kajibski kind of version of this. Hang on, I'm going to straighten this out. My Dapper Dan is making my headset slick. No, I'm not using Dapper Dan. Unfortunately, I have to find some for my slickiness. All right, guys, let's do this. This next track is Deftones. The name of the track is Cherry Waves. All right. I love that we're hearing more of the send of the reverb on this so far.
A sea of waves, we heard the same plague. Just as I rehearsed over my brain.
This is an absolutely effing incredible track. So far, this is my favorite from them. I may have listened already, I think, to maybe 7 or 8 of the tracks, you know, through my channels. This by far is my favorite one. The opening of it, when I said we're hearing a little bit more of the send of the reverb, is that when you listen to the drums when this opens up from an engineer's point of view, there's something that you could do. I've said this once before, where you have the main source, so you have the drums that are recorded, and usually you'll add reverb to it or some kind of ambience. But you have the power of an engineer actually to pull the source back and hear and maybe even raise a little bit of what is in the post as the signal. And you gingerly mix that. So that's why it sounds like we're hearing a little more. It's still ambient, you know, it's still giving us that dynamic, but it sounds more like it's in a hall, and you're hearing more of the hall than you actually are, or a plate, or whatever the engineer ran it through, instead of, like, for instance, the opening of the System of the Down track was totally opposite, was in your face, you know, intimate power drums with zero ambience. This is the reverse. Chino's voice in this, there's just something about a great vocalist that when they lean into their more, this is gonna probably sound horrible, but I'm gonna do it anyhow. And they're talking like this, and you could feel that it's close, and then they kill it and they blow up. That kind of, I'm sorry, that probably looks so horrible, but I'm trying to get through it. How vocalists like Chino can do that and get so into it, but you need mic technique, you know, and a great mic pre and all that sort of fun stuff. But then he has that just thing where he can just get in your ear like he's telling you a secret, but you could just feel there's just torchiness and power in it, and then he cuts loose, and that hook is huge, absolutely huge. Bass is such a staple in this track. Kind of reminds me of a little bit of Tommy. Okay, I don't know if this is sacrilege to say, but I'm going to say it anyhow. There's some of what it is that I'm hearing that kind of reminds me of, this isn't like who came before, the chicken or the egg, but has a little bit of a Smashing Pumpkins vibe. And I don't know from which to pull in my very small bubble of music listening, if you would, but there's a little bit of that kind of vibe in there. But it's uniquely Deftones, there's no two ways about it. But those killer hook is so powerful in his voice, what happens there, and because he's holding out these like half notes, and some whole notes through some of these things, it's just allowing his voice and his power to kind of cut through in such a melodic way that I don't believe in any of the other songs that I've heard are as universally metal, ethereal, metal ambience as much as this, especially even the cleaner guitar tones that we've been hearing. There's been some nice little change-ups going on in there, and the drummer's actually killing it, but oh shit. Guys, I don't curse a lot, but geez. That bass line, I just wish it was a squishy. I wish it was just a little hotter. Because that bass line that is being played through the verse is staying through the party. As it gets into, the more harder and powerful part. That is staying in for the party. That line is repeating itself. And that is like, you're like fingers clutched into your soul and keeping you bound here. So it's almost like, to me, what it feels like is like the bass and that line and that, musicianship and that composition. It's like, the big balloons when people stand in, the big balloons that people fly and float in, like, I don't know, like the over the rainbow, kind of thing. I don't know what they call it, but hot air balloons. Hot air balloons. Where the bass is like the tether to the ground, but then you have these soaring melody and just powerful hook that's just like kind of just, I don't know why. I listen to music, I hear colors, I see images, so that's what I see. I'm just saying. So you hear in the drums in that, how that was more of the reverb. That was a badass track, guys. Without a doubt, that's my favorite Deftones to this point, in my very little journey there. And they're like I said, there's all these little elements in there that for me personally, listening to it, from the engineering technique, and the drummer was crushing some great fills in there. Now, sometimes, me, when I listen to music, I kind of go through phases where I'm spending more time listening, let's say, to bass players or vocalists and stuff. But, I'm trying to look at the salad bar and just taking it all in. And when I do these listens, especially if I'm doing it live like this, having one chance to actually kind of try to remember some of the things that I heard. But his voice is absolutely mental, but still yet, the etherealness and the bass line to me was, when I go back and listen to this track, I'm actually going to pick up my guitar and kind of needle through it and stuff, because it is very what's the word I'm looking for? Not influential. It's very motivating. And that's when I really love a track. If I listen to a piece of music and I automatically start looking at my guitar, it's because I'm being motivated by the movement of the track, and this is one of them, you know. So yeah, like that. So yeah, what's next, guys? Alien Ant Farm. I don't know that I have any Alien Ant Farm on my Decomposer Lounge, so this will be a first, I think. If I did, I may have done it. I've done like 800 some odd videos on that channel, so I can't. For you folks that are here on Twitch, and we go through all our video game music and all the video games I've already done. That is nothing compared to the list of things I did on my Decomposer Lounge. So, excuse me. All right, yeah, they did. Yes, there is the cover. I did notice when I popped up their main thing that they had that Smooth Criminal cover. So I kind of recall listening to that, but this one was on my Patreon list. So, and really quick, guys, I do want to thank, for those of you who are still on Patreon. There's quite a few of you that's hung through everything on Patreon, even when I thought I was going to quit and bail. You guys supported me through that, so I can't thank you enough. And then if you guys haven't joined me on Patreon, I got a ton of stuff over there still that I haven't released to the channel. And as recently as even the Gojira full album listen is still just hanging out there. So you may want to consider that. That's, I don't know, my link is somewhere. It's somewhere. Let's do this. This is the song Wish from Alien Ant Farm. This is 2001. Let's do this. All right. Great guitar tone.
Proudest to hear it all. Yeah. Proudest to watch us fall. Yeah. Make a wish, make a single dash wish. You live the pompous life. Broke kisses all the time. Make wishes, don't break mine. Make a wish, make a single dash wish. You live the pompous life. Broke kisses all the time. Don't break mine. Don't break mine. Cold fire used to inspire all. Not now. These are tired. Maybe they'll find their niche. Resort to yash. Make a wish, make a single dash wish. You live the pompous life. Broke kisses all the time. Make wishes, don't break mine. Make a wish, make a single dash wish. You live the pompous life. Broke kisses all the time. Don't break mine. Don't break mine. Don't be like who you better watch the road. Don't be like who you got the strength and the balls. Don't be like who you better watch the road.
Now, totally polar opposite from the last song, how powerful and dry the mix is on this. So that allows a lot more of the punchier and the people's elbow rhythmically to really come across. And it sounds, even though in the middle it sounds a little smaller where the vocals are and stuff, because there are some layered things that are happening there. They reserve the dynamics for the hard left, hard right for the guitar, which has got, like I opened up this track saying what a sick guitar tone. But the drums are really dry. Everything is really dry, which actually gives the engineer a lot more of an opportunity to manage the beast sonically and give you a little bit more of an intimacy, power up through the intimacy on this track. I guess I saw in the comments that this was part of a video game, so how ironic. I think the Tony Hawk skateboard thing, and I could see it. I could see how this would probably be just an absolutely sick track to play video games to, as far as the skateboard kind of game is. Oh, love that, Mr. Drummer. Is it me, or does this sound a lot more darker and heavier than what I am thinking is new metal? This seems to have a little bit more of a hardcore metal grind to it. Then again, like I said, I don't know how these selections, ended up in Patreon and ended up in the list, except for when people said, no, this is new metal and stuff. This just sounds a lot more punchier and throatier, a little more punkier and darker and heavier. Love what the drummer's doing with the rhythms when he's jerking around. He's like, even though we're still holding in the pocket and he's giving us a real straight delivery. The fact that he jerks us around a little bit with those fills and a little bit of the change up is sick. Oh, Guitar Hero too. All right.
You better watch the road.
Little corn there.
Don't be like who you better watch the road. Don't be like who you got the string and the balls. Don't be like who you better watch the road. Don't be like who you got the string and the balls. Time out shall break like wash. 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 Time out shall break like wash. Wash. Wash.
Very unique choices of notes there. Oh, that was it. Ba-da-bum, dugga-dun, 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 dugga-dun. But that bass tone in there really jammed out in there. That was a cranking track. I just think out of everything that I listened to, that's the more visceral metal punkiness. And I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it was a hell of a lot more straightforward. There was no ambient, there was no trickery in it, as far as how they were delivering the song to us dynamically, slowing up, changing beats and stuff like that. It was just really super straightforward. And I could see this without a doubt being an OST track to not only, I guess, is it Tommy Hawk. Was it? Am I saying his name right? Keep on saying Tommy Hawk. I'm so shameful because I've been surfing my whole life. I just can't remember stuff anymore. But Tony, thank you. Please don't come for me. I've had quite a few concussions. Unfortunately, it wasn't from skating. It was more from hockey than it was skating. So I'm like, as I get a little older, I could see the faces. And their names. I just can't. That's okay. I shall age with grace in front of all of us. And I guess there was another one that. A lot of big waves. What was the other game? Guitar Hero. Was it in Guitar Hero also? I can see that being a super sick, fun track to play in Guitar Hero if that was Tommy Eagle. Shadow. Bruh. If it wasn't Guitar Hero, I could see that being a really super fun track to play because the visuals, you know how that goes. I've never tried Guitar Hero, but it looked like it'd be a fun game. All right, guys. What's this one? Papa Roach. Okay, so I just did a video. What's the name of the band that Ronnie Raddick just put out a cover of Papa Roach's track, Falling in Reverse. Yeah, Ronnie Radke. Okay. What was the name of the track that he covered of Papa Roach? Because then a little later, I saw that he played it for Papa Roach, like kind of really nervous and like what he would say. And, Papa Roach seemed to have really dug it. And that was a wonderful tip of the hat from Ronnie, to actually go there and play it for him. So I thought that was very unique. Now, because I'm pulling the Patreon list, I probably should end up doing Last Resort from Papa Roach at some point to go back and listen to the original. But this is coming from my Patreon buddies. And so let's do this. This is Between Angels and Insects by Papa Roach. All right.
There's no money, there's no possessions, only obsession. I don't need that shit. Take my money, Take my obsession.
I just wanna be heard, loud and clear all my words, coming from within, man, tell them what you heard. It's about a revolution, in your heart and in your mind, you can find a conclusion, lifestyle and obsession. Diamond rings get you nothing but a lifelong lesson. In your pocketbook stressing, you're a slave to the system, working jobs that you hate, for that shit you don't need. It's too bad the world is based on greed. Step back and see. Stop thinking about yourself, stop thinking about. There's no money, there's no possession, only obsession. I don't need that shit. Take my money, take my possessions, take my obsession. I don't need that. 'Cause everything is nothing.
All right, you guys know me better than anything in the world, and I've always declared I never listen to lyrics. It's hard for me to listen to lyrics when I'm listening to music. But I got to say something. The messaging in these lyrics are so universal, and they're so evergreen, and they transcend so many genres and so many generations, you know? And lyrics like this are a lot of times based out of personal wisdom through trials and tribulations, whether, you know, at one point you have no money and then another point you have a lot of money, and then you see what that does to your life. It's a lot easier when you had less money, you know. Each one of us are going to have a unique story about money and possessions and stuff like that. I taught my daughters one great saying: being cool is free, acting cool will cost you. This is that kind of vibe in these lyrics. Now, I'm going to stop being Mr. Lyric here and get into the track here. A couple things I want to say is, God, such a great compression, such a nice tight sound on that opening, you know, distorted guitar, nice and pocketed over here. But then it was complemented by the clean sound, you know, on this side. So dynamically, me as an engineer, as a whatever it is that I am, as an old composer, decomposing before your very eyes. I love that. That's the kind of energy and texture that producers and energies put in, that is put in to give you a unique experience. Now, the vocals come in. But where I really want to lean into the vocal performance is, now this has a little bit more of what I think I'm familiar with, the term nu metal vibe to it, where there's more of the slam poetry, I don't want to say rap performance. This does have tonal value to it, da 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 da, of what he's doing, but it's the cadence against the riff in this track that's slaying it for me. You know, the tempo, the rhythmic performance of what he's doing against this riff is what's killing it for me. And of course, sorry, I'm in a bass mood right now. I know we always glam a lot on the metal guitars and all that because it's in our face a lot, but you know, man, those bass players are so right on top of it. It's such in the thick of it. So, you know, always big tip for the bass players of the hat, you know, because I know that it's just that thing.
Emptiness isn't everything. This reality is really just a fucked up dream. With the flesh and the blood that you call your soul, flip it inside out, it's a big black hole. Take your money, burn it up like an asteroid. Possession, they are never gonna fill the void. Take it away, you learn the best lesson. The heart, the soul, the life, the passion. There's no money, there's no possession, only obsession. I don't need that shit. Take my money, take my possession, take my obsession. I don't need that shit. Money, possession, obsession. Present yourself.
Love that cut time. Come on.
Comb your hair, clock in. You just can't win, just can't win. And the things you own you.
If if that's not one of the most badass lines ever in the history of mankind that gets repeated in so many different media bites and from so many different walks of class and so many walks of realization and universal thinking, the things you own you. You know, not saying that universally that's the truth stretched over 100%, but when you get to that place, that is such a powerful line, absolutely powerful line. And then the last thing I want to say about this before I let the track run through is that when he's going into his hook, the da 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 da, that's such a unique choice of notes in that melody that gives you kind of this kind of taffy dissonance. I just made that up. But I'm thinking of taffy, like saltwater taffy, when you see that. But it's that thing where it's like, da, da, you know, it's like there's a dissonance in there that makes you, it pulls you into it. It even if you're not cognizant, even if you're not cognizant of it, like I'm listening to it, and I am because I'm listening to it, and you're the listener who's enjoying it. That's that thing that kind of, you don't know why, that keeps pulling you through, and it's this really super slick note that he's singing there.
Take my money, take my possessions, take my obsession. I don't need that shit. Fuck your money, fuck your possession, fuck your obsession. I don't need that shit. Money, possession, obsession. I don't need that shit.
God, I love. You gotta finish it with that bass like that. That was badass. I love when the tubes, or what, I don't know, it could be anything nowadays, but when the tubes are desaturating in a head, when you let those power chords out, and you can hear a release of certain power and stuff in the tube. At least in the old days with the Marshalls and stuff when I was younger, that used to be something I would just listen to and just go, yeah. See, I'm that weird guy that when I was learning to engineer in the 70s, is that I was taught by engineers that talked a lot about the air moving between the speaker and the mic and stuff like that, and unique things to do with microphones, not only in the speakers, but even in the back of the head, you know, to get certain tones and stuff like that, just in my mind. So that's where I go in my head when I'm listening to tracks and guitars and stuff. I go back to this whimsical time in my life when engineering was still in its pure phase. I'm not saying anything about engineers now. Engineers now have much more of a palette of options to be creative artists, individuals in of themselves, even if they don't play any instruments. It's mind-numbing. But back in the more raw days of, like, you know, doing it that way, that just what I remember from my youth. Now, the last thing I want to say about this track is that I was kind of listening to these lyrics and stuff, and maybe putting it towards, once again, the mistake of maybe saying his message, here's what he's talking about. And I'm thinking, okay, he's talking about money and obsession and possession and the, you know, material things owning you. But there could also be a cross part of this lyrical base that it's, because it said here, I was thinking, where is it? You know, fuck your money, fuck your possession. Oh, there you go. I'm going to have to bleep those out. Fuck your obsession. I'm reading that going, okay, maybe at this point, the messaging is he's talking about people who are trying to overpower him with, here's money, you know, and then trying to make him a possession. And, you know, and he's sick and tired of being somebody else's obsession, like maybe a record company or something of that nature. I don't know. Those are the different kind of colors that you can pull possibly from the lyrics. For me personally, it was a little more of a, like, this is how I've lived my life. My whole life, I've always just isolated myself, regardless of how fun and vocal I might be on social media and stuff. I'm still a man in a coconut that just kind of, like, you know, Wilson, you know, my little island. And I've never bit into it, you know, the possession and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, you still always get like somebody takes a little shotgun of rock salt of greed and stuff and goes, sometimes I'll still get some in the eye and go, oh, maybe I'm missing out on life if I don't have toys. And then I clear myself up of, that with some, good thinking and some good stuff. But anyhow, all that being said, I think I have one more. I didn't get the Slipknot one handled. Excuse me, sorry. And how many folks are here? Oh, you still got the same crew here, so thank you so much. I think it was Slipknot track that I did not get handled. What did it say in the list? Stand by. What? Oh, okay, hang on. Stand by. It's off of this album. And okay, here it is. Sorry, guys. It spit it out. Okay, well, I'm going to have to re-edit this and pop this in there. So this is the last track from the Patreon suggestion. I blew this while I was recording it here, so let's do this. And this is Slipknot's Spit It Out. All right.
Did you never give a damn in the first place? Maybe it's time you when the tables turn. Cause in the interest of all involved, I got the problem solved. And the verdict is guilty. Bad little girl, late on the way of air to try and stop dropping off. You were dead from the get-go, been Mount Burner. Till my cock stuck away, scared of me now. Then you tell me that I thought always is and never was. Don't measurement of beers and vinegar. Don't tell me you're me. Think I fear your bullshit. Just another dumb bum jumping up this shit. It's another way to break through the noise. Another circle that has had you guys have been. Gotta be that way if you want it. Sanity, literal profanity, it's bad. Smash it out. All you wanna do is shut me down. All I wanna do is step you out. Smash it out. All you wanna do is shut me down. All I wanna do is step you out. Maybe it's the way you gotta spend a lot of room. I find people know you live inspired to leave when you realize. Step up third. I guess it's time to bury your ass with the chrome straight to the dome. You hear me right, bitch? Out in the sun. And if you know it's good, just shut up and fake for the backstab. Don't you know you're distance? I thought we know. Yeah, such a good shot. Make it a minute back, boy, I don't hear shit, cause the gate's hitting louder. Come on, I get a face full of tech, they living up bar, going home in a basket. You get up on the power, no nothing, nice to shit. Well, ain't that something, pay off, don't protect. And you can none if you want, but I'll find you coming up behind you.
Wow. I was not expecting that whatsoever. Now, once again, because I don't have a large, listening of a lot of Slipknot, this is another one of these secret things. Now I know why this one Patreon member was really leaning on me, saying, dude, you got to listen to this track. Just listen to this track. It's a short one, but you're just going to totally get sick on it. And I did. As a matter of fact, I got chicken skin within 20 seconds. That's another, winner signal for me. If I listen to something, I'm like, ting! And I think what it is, too, is that the visceral guttiness of the performance in the band, even though it's not really normalized, crushed volume-wise in your head. And it could be that I'm listening to it, a lot of times the volumes are not 100% normalized to a certain volume, each track that you go through in between different albums and artists and stuff. But this one doesn't seem to have that bone-crushing, shove that stuff in your face. But I think I'm actually stoked about it, because then I was able to actually get the power and the vibe of the vocal performance. But I had to look up the lyrics or hit the lyrics because it was going really fast. Once again, this is probably one of the core reasons why I'm a late bloomer into metal and stuff. And I feel like I'm probably the 16-year-old listening to this for the first time. And once again, another thing too is that these lyrics, man, God, there's no other way to express yourself in this context with these lyrics and stuff unless it's done with metal. I can't, that's going to be another video I'm going to talk about, is the power and the intensity and the eclectic creativity of lyrics in metal and heavy metal. Sure, some of them are way out there and pretty heavy and stuff, but you can't say it any other way than in metal, and this is one of those tracks seemingly so. The engineer must have slipped on chocolate milk here.
Time I set this record straight. All the needle nose punching is making me irate. Sick of my bitches falling on their fears. Where you gonna be in the next 5 years? The cool when all the fools and all the politics get your lips ready. Gonna gag, gonna make you sick. You got dick when they ride out the good stuff. Bam, like you're sick of me. Good enough. Fuck me, I'm all out of enemies. 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 Fuck me, I'm all out of enemies.
Love that with the engineering. If that is not the best way to end this new metal smash up, that was just freaking great. I love the percussion at the end. I believe, is it Slipknot or is it Mudvayne that has, or maybe they both do, I think 7 or 8 musicians. Some play monster drums and some play, whoops, where's my arm? My arm is gone. Hey, NEM, it's a twister. But that being said, I don't know which one of them is the one that has all those multiple musicians and stuff. But they have a monstrous presence in the videos that I've seen. And Slipknot has 9. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Now, does Mudvayne know? But Mudvayne seems to be like more of the compact. I think it's 4 or 5 guys, right? 2 guitars, bass, vocals, and drums. Well, nonetheless, I think, okay, so it does have 4. Nonetheless, Slipknot, as a standout legacy band in the new metal genre era, that still continues to produce and still continues to just sell out these massive festivals and stuff. I get it, and I can see why. It's visceral, accessible heaviness, you know. And one of the things I'm going to talk about, I'm actually going to do a little, you know, I'm not really big on doing talk only videos on my channels, but I think this new metal thing I want to jump into because Nick Nocturnal and Finn McKenty and those guys have talked about it. I think I might have a little something I might, as a grandpa figure. I think Nick is in his 20s and Finn is in his 40s and I'm in my 60s. So there's a nice little, you know, I would never consider them Padawa or young Jedis of that nature, and I definitely don't ever think I know anything more than anybody else, especially with this new journey of mine. But all right, thank you so much for the Patreon list, Patreon members, all of you guys. That was just insane, the list. I'm sorry it took so long to put this together. And for those of you who are here on Twitch, thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to cut this right now, and then I'm going to sew this up, and I'm popping it up on Patreon. It's going to hang out there for a while just for you Patreon members. Patreon. Freaking A. It's like, you know, you take the dog with the peanut butter on the nose, and that's what I've been. All right, guys. See ya.